tight, but I think you'll make it.
I think Ronaldo and I were a little confused about the meeting. We're like, there's no meeting tomorrow.
I know it's a weird week because we have it's the second and fourth Wednesdays now. There's no fifth Wednesday to change these.
Right.
But next month we can consider doing the first and third, or the third and fifth, or whatever.
It's fine.
I know, but at any rate,
thank you, Carmen.
Normally follows some sort of meeting or anything. But anyway, Madam Mayor, it's 9:06 and we are live.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the January 8th. February 8th. Well, you know, I say January because last night, and I'm going to show you, Melissa, that thing on there had the date January, which is why I messed up.
I am sorry.
Well, so this is my payback. So today's February 8th. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the pre-agenda meeting. We have a very beautifully hatted Commissioner McCoy. Chappelle is just what a beautiful. We have roll call, please.
Mayor Betty Resch.
Here.
Vice Mayor Christopher McVoy.
Here.
Commissioner Sarah Maliga. Commissioner Kimberly Stokes is absent due to a work conflict. Commissioner Reynaldo Diaz.
Here.
Great. Okay, well, last night was a very good meeting. I think everything went, well, and that last decision for me was a very difficult one, because I understand both sides, but I just felt, the bottom line is to, I really do understand both sides, but I just felt it was, our fiscal responsibility not to try to earn and not lose money, but it is what it is. And I think that's a good idea that we are going to sort of look at the whole, where am I? The whole issue soon. As a matter of fact, we're meeting with the auditor. So does anyone have any burning desires to talk this morning?
I just want to bring one thing up.
Sure.
I had alerted Carmen yesterday. As you know, both the mayor and I both sit on the legislative committee. We received basically an emergency text yesterday and an email that House Bill 401, which is addressing sovereign immunity, is back on the table again this year. And they essentially are going to vote on sovereign immunity. So each personal claim that is brought against the city is right now $200,000 max payout, and each incident is $300,000. They want to move that to 2.5 million and 3 million.
Right.
So which is absolutely absurd.
It's
right. So because we're self-insuring. So yesterday I spent the latter part of the afternoon composing emails to everyone who sits on that committee. It's being brought forward and sponsored by Representative Beltran. So I wrote, I think it was 18 or 19 different emails to oppose it. And I just want us all to be vigilant and keep our eyes on this, because it could bankrupt our city, very quickly if this gets passed.
Sarah, let me ask you something. The emails that you sent out, I've not been, I've just been busy with other stuff. I haven't been able to do that. I got that email yesterday as well. I don't think, and I don't know if our lawyer's here, I don't think that if you share those with us that we could, just sometimes getting you've done the work, which I appreciate. Maybe you could forward those to us so that we could sort of copy and paste and get them out as well. Because time is of the essence. And I really appreciate you bringing that up.
As the city attorney doesn't mind, I can do that. And I'll forward the email list to you all as well.
I don't think that
I didn't do a BCC blind copy. I literally, composed one to each person. But yes, I definitely do that when I get off the road today.
Yeah, since we are not voting on it, I don't think it's something that we need to worry about, Sunshine. So if you could, that would just be a tremendous help, because it would get us going. I very much appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, I will take care of that today.
Okay, perfect.
That's really all I have, because to me that that's a financial decision that could bankrupt our city, and I just want to be vigilant about it.
The legislature is not our friend. We need to become friends with them.
Yeah, so we're going to do what we can. That's why we're going to Tallahassee, and we just keep bending their ear and making sure that they know we're paying attention.
Yep. Great, thank you. So, Ronaldo, you mentioned something about golf course.
Yeah, I have a couple things. And first, thanks for bringing that up, Commissioner
I'm sorry to
Malega, 'cause-
interrupt, Madam Mayor, but the Vice Mayor had requested if he could speak first because he's on the road. Do you still want to do that, Vice Mayor?
Actually, he's in the swamp. Sure, go ahead.
Yeah,
I
we just
apologize,
got
Commissioner
here.
Diaz.
Okay.
If that's
Sorry.
okay with Commissioner Diaz and the mayor, that would be great because I need to start helping out. We're setting up to do our field work. I only have one thing that I wanted to bring up, and that is that I would like us as a group to consider adopting some sort of formal rules on backup material for special meetings, that we need to make sure that they are very complete, that every effort has been made to pull all the relevant information on, because a special meeting usually is a fairly big issue. And in this case, I'm thinking about it because of the short-term rental issue that we'll be dealing with tomorrow. And we really need to have rules that make sure that all the information is pulled together well in advance. The meeting is not scheduled until that information has been brought together. We really ought to have a chance as a commission to look and make sure, yep, that's pretty complete. Go ahead and post it so that the public has all the same information that we all have prior to going into any decision.
I think we received those books weeks ago about the short term.
It very incomplete. I've had lots of communications from people in the community that are very frustrated. I've been very frustrated that it's not been complete information. This is a very big decision, has a lot of consequences. So I'd like us to consider some rules on that, and I'd like support from the rest of the commission on it if people feel similar.
Well, I do you think that I mean, you say it's incomplete. We got it, but you're saying it's incomplete. Is there something, and I'm asking you this question. Is there something specific that you think is missing that we should have? Because I'm getting the same email. I mean, I see on Facebook, I see on emails, people are, where's the money breakdown, which I don't know that we really have. We've been provided by some citizens, but like I said last night at the meeting, since we did do the housing study, we're not going to make I don't think we're going to vote tomorrow night on anything because we want to see what our experts, because we hired experts now, say about the effect of the short-term rentals on housing in general. And I think that's an important piece of it. It's really a policy decision. Do we want them? Don't we want them? And if we don't want them, how do we enforce it?
I think it's a good deal more complicated than that.
Right, but my question to you, Chris, is do you have something specific that you're looking for that is missing that you saw that you're thinking of?
You have, as far as I know, have received similar emails to I have that have provided more information than was included. I've asked for clear information on what are our possible choices, what are the consequences of those, and what are choices that we don't have, so that is clear to the community. It's not just a policy decision, well, we like them in this area, we don't.
I understand that. It's not a question of like. It's not a question of like.
No, it needs to be clear to the public. It's only fair to them and to us as decision makers that they understand what our constraints are of what things we can decide on, what we can't. If we make choice A, what other things does that limit? If we make choice B, what things are limited with that? All of that should be laid out very clearly, so that and there's a lot of data that should have been made available and that hasn't been.
Do you think the staff has data that they're
I
holding?
think the staff has not looked as actively for data and has had offers from the community to get and steers on how to do that, and it's not been done.
Well, then should we have the meeting? If you're saying that, what's the remedy? What's your remedy?
That's why I'm suggesting that we ought to adopt some rules that, as staff on any issue that's big enough to merit a special meeting, put together the packet of what's they're proposing as the backup, run it by each of us and say, hey, does this feel fairly complete to you? If it does, good. Post it, schedule the meeting. If it doesn't, let's make the adjustments. Okay, you need to add this, you need to add that, and then schedule the meeting. That's
Okay, now,
how I would propose doing things.
well, and my sort of, the emails that I've gotten with the information that we've gotten from a couple citizens, the staff doesn't necessarily have that. I mean, that's something that's been provided by a private citizen. Now, if you're saying, let me finish, Chris, let me finish. If you're suggesting that if we receive those kinds of materials, that we should provide those to staff. I can't verify what we got. It's from a private citizen. I can't verify their facts, their numbers, whatever. But it's not, I mean, other than, I think if you looked at the information that we got, that we got from staff, and it didn't include, for example, a financial breakdown or different thing, then I would decide it's incumbent on us to say what else is there. But how can staff, if they don't know what they don't know, is my point. So are you suggesting that the stuff that we get unsolicited from citizens should be included in our official packet?
I suggest that if a citizen can find something, our staff who are professionals in the area certainly can find it just as easily. And we should be proactive. We shouldn't have to wait for citizens to provide stuff. We should be looking for that ourselves, not the commission, but the staff should be doing that.
Can I chime in for a second, Mayor?
Please.
So, I hear what you're saying, Commissioner McBoy, and I think that, we do need, more information before we make this imperative decision. However, at the same time, I have been privy to staff bringing us information and data and us going, yeah, well, thanks, but we really don't trust staff. So now we're going to go out and hire a third party and spend money. So we can't have 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Either you're going to trust staff to compose data and do research that we need, or we're going to say, you know what, let's just hire a third party and get outside information, which is what we did with this housing study. So I believe that we will have the data that we will need once this housing study comes back on the effects of Airbnbs on our housing market. But I don't think it's fair for us to say staff should be out finding this information when half the time, half the people on the dais don't trust staff and are very clear about that. When staff brings information, they go, well, that's great, but what do the professionals say? What does somebody who's smarter than you say? And then we turn around and we spend money to hire a third party anyway. So I think that we should postpone tomorrow's meeting until we get this housing study back. I'm not saying we're kicking the can down the road, but we're not going to make a decision. I don't feel comfortable making a decision tomorrow based on the information that we have not received from this housing study. So,
although I think,
it's got to be one way or the other. We can't trust staff to do stuff, but then turn around and slap them in the face after they spent time and money researching and then saying, yeah, that's great, but now we want data from a third party.
I think that's not a very, as somebody who spends a lot of time dealing with information and looking for information, that's what scientists do. There's lots of different ways to get it. The staff can certainly get something. Sometimes the staff may say, hey, look, that's going to be a bigger project than we have the time or the resources or the expertise or whatever to do. We suggest that you outsource that to somebody who's a specialist in it. Their different issues are going to require different ways. Some of it is going to be supplementary, that staff's going to be able to do some things. We're going to be able to. That's why my suggestion as a procedure is on big issues, not on, do we need to buy pencils from this company or that company, but on big issues, if they merit a special meeting, particularly, we have staff put together the information, the packet, bring it to the commissioners individually, have people say, yes, that feels pretty complete, or, hey, no, it doesn't. And, here's some suggested ways to complete it. And then once all of us are pretty satisfied, all of that information becomes available to all of us and to all of the public well before the meeting. That is a good governance, robust approach to decision making.
Okay, I have 2 comments. The first, I don't think we should cancel the meeting because I think it is scheduled, and it will be an opportunity for us, I believe, to hear from people who are interested, get different public opinions. Okay. On the other hand, though, we all got that packet, Chris. And did you go to Carmen and say there's not enough information here? I've got this other information that should be included.
I started
asking for information
back in December, over the last 2 weeks, Carmen can verify, I have been very clear about, no, I didn't think the meeting was ready to go because I didn't think the packet was, and I've definitely asked for more things. Yes.
Did you provide Carmen with the things that we've been provided from by private citizens? Did you give that to her?
As far as I know, anything that came to me, I made sure that it was sent to Carmen. Either I sent it or whoever sent it to me, I asked them to forward it to Carmen.
I see Carmen's hand is up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate the Vice Mayor bringing this subject matter up. I do welcome a discussion regarding backup materials. We've had those discussions, and yes, he has asked questions for additional information, and the additional information was provided. I have not received any data or information from private citizens as of recent. I received questions and concerns from citizens regarding the short-term rental matter, but not the data. The question I have, or the comment that I want to make regarding backup material is this. The information that staff provides as backup material is certainly our facts, issues related to the, I'm sorry. We vet the information regarding to the particular subject matter at hand that is before you. And as staff, we certainly want to provide as much information as possible to make sure you have to make an informed decision. Do know that as staff submits a staff report, it is not necessarily going to exhaust every question that we can anticipate that will be asked outside of the information that we have available or the knowledge we have to share with you so you can make an informed decision. So that staff report will provoke and encourage discussion and also may involve additional questions or additional information needed for you all to have. And of course, we stand ready to provide that. Of course, some things are time sensitive. Some things cannot be generated within the time given us because of the workload that we may have or the amount of time or data that we have to retrieve that is out of our control. For instance, if we have to go to the county to retrieve information, that time frame may be outside of our time frame because we can't control certain entities or control how we get that data. So there's a lot of factors involved in getting information within a certain period of time. And also, depending on the subject matter, it may involve more in-depth study, or there may be limited information that we have to give to you, but we try to give, and I believe staff give good reports, and we will certainly, there's always room for improvement, and we're working towards that. But I do welcome this conversation because I want to make sure that the commission is comfortable with the data that you're receiving from staff and that you're comfortable with the information to make a decision. Now, if I can mention on the issue of receiving information from the public, I have a concern in placing information from the public in our backup because the backup is information from the staff. And if we receive information from the public, we will have to, of course, vet that information to make sure, because when you think about an issue, there's two sides to an issue. There's a pro and someone against it, some for it. And so staff is not necessarily going to lean, we try to stay neutral and factual. And yes, we want to give pros and cons to each side of an issue, but we're not here to push up an agenda on one side or the other. So we need to be careful about that.
And I totally agree with that I would not in any way suggest, and I agree that there are going to be people who are on X side, alt side. There might even be more than two sides of an issue. Certainly anything that's submitted ought to be vetted by staff. But for instance, one of the things that came in was a map simply showing on laid over Lake Worth where all the short-term rentals are. That would be a
Why
very
didn't you just give it
relevant
to
thing.
Carmen and ask her to put it on the agenda?
I
To-
did.
I did that.
Very fine.
I did that. Carmen sent a memo of some things that responded to some things I requested. That was sent to all of us. It was not put, as far as I know, into the backup, which means the public has different information than we have. I don't think that's healthy. That's why I'm suggesting we ought to have a procedure.
I don't know
And
what
write
the
it down.
procedure. I mean, how
What's that?
cumbersome is it gonna be? Are you, I mean, I don't disagree with some of the things you're saying, Chris. But I also know that our staff right now is pretty much operating at capacity, okay? They're not perfect, but they're operating past capacity. So to say, here's a new homework assignment that one commissioner, think you need, here's a list of all these facts. You staff need to vet this to put it on the agenda. Perhaps if you, Chris, received something, you could share it with the rest of us so that we would all have it, or bring it to the meeting. But I think sometimes our expectations of staff are a little onerous.
Well, it was mentioned that, sometimes there are time constraints. We're talking right now, or as of last night, that maybe we should move the short-term rental meeting to after the housing report comes in. We've had several of the meetings over the last several years. That to me suggests that there is no immediate time that the meeting has to happen, which to me says there isn't a time constraint. You put together your packet, make sure that we're all comfortable, it's pretty complete, and then you schedule the meeting, not the other way around. Don't schedule the meeting and then say, oh, I don't have time to get the packet together. That doesn't make sense.
Well, I think we should have the meeting, get the input from what we can. And I think that the public, they know the meeting's coming up, they want to speak about it. I think that's perfectly great. But I think that since we have housing is an issue, one of the criticisms of Airbnbs is that they take up of their available rentals, which has an impact on the housing. So I think, again, if we're relying on experts, that's one of the things we've asked them to do. So
I think
let's go-
that's fine. I'm more interested in us coming up with a procedure that in general for this. I don't have a strong feeling. I mean, my initial one was, I don't think our packet is very complete for tomorrow. Should we go ahead and take input from the public? Yes, I think we should. I think it sounds like there's an agreement that we're not going to vote on anything tomorrow. That's useful, but the public doesn't know that at this point. But that's okay, I guess. They'll find out.
Okay. Well, all right, procedure,
Madam Mayor, the city
Yes.
attorney and I have our hands raised.
Oh, I'm sorry, who wants to talk first? Duke it
Anyway,
out, you two. Go ahead,
All
Miss
right.
Melissa.
I,
We're gonna go-
I'll jump in because
All right,
I agree with the vice mayor's comments that a procedure would be helpful. My agreement might be a different reason that he's thinking, though. I don't know what he's thinking about is I'm gonna maybe defend staff a little bit here. 5 commissioners, 5 different commissioners making 5 different requests potentially for information, diverse, different information. Maybe the procedure is staff is not allowed to respond to any commissioner that's going to require staff work of more than 10 minutes, half hour, 1 hour, because what I've observed is, each one of you does ask staff to do different things. And there's only so many hours in the day, and staff is going down and trying to get the stuff that the mayor wants, that the vice mayor wants, that, each commissioner may want. So maybe the procedure is, if it's going to take more than a certain amount of time, whatever that time is, that's got to come to the commission. And the commission has to say, we agree that we want XYZ data, and it's going to take the staff 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever it is. I don't know if that's a good idea or not. I just know I see staff running around a lot, trying to satisfy 5 different masters, and it's difficult for them.
well, everything should be run through Carmen to begin with. I mean, I do not request, if I get something that I have to email to another department, Carmen's on the email list because she's their boss. We are not. It is not our place to say, I can't say, to William, for example, do me a,
Oh, when I say
gather-
staff, I meant Carmen. I mean, it goes to Carmen, but then,
Right.
she's only one person and she's got to have people doing it. And
Oh, no, exactly. That's what I mean. That's what I mean. It's added work for everybody. So that's an interesting concept. That's an interesting concept.
And I'm not sure if that's where the vice mayor was going in the sense of,
Right.
where, would individual commissioners make requests? What's the limitation? Is there any limitation? What if one of you says, okay, I want a thesis, I want 100 photos. I mean, and that hasn't happened, but I'm making theoretical concepts because I see more and more staff just getting stretched and almost frayed.
Yeah. And we need to support our staff. So, Melissa, you were going to say something.
Yes, so regarding this being a special meeting, originally this was going to be a work session.
Right.
And the previous special meeting was also supposed to be a work session, but because our rules and procedure do not allow public comment at work sessions, it was made a special meeting. So maybe what we could do is go back to the rules and procedure and say work session comment will be available will be permissible at the discretion of the commission, because maybe everybody would feel differently if this were a work session rather than a special meeting.
I understand what you're saying, but if we start saying, well, this workshop you can talk, but that workshop you can't, that's,
Right.
I think that inconsistency would be a problem.
Yeah.
So we can,
I
because
agree.
it's a special meeting, we don't have to have a vote. But it does give
No,
the public.
100% not. You
Right,
can just give direction or whatever. It's just,
Right.
we made it a special meeting so that we could allow for public comment. That was the only
Right.
reason.
no, and I appreciate that, that's kind of what we did. All right, so obviously, I think we need to talk about, we're getting on time, but, we can certainly talk about this at a regular meeting, but, I don't disagree with some of the things you said, Chris. I have also just a practical concern about how this should work. So I have notes about your comments. But I think that if we, if there's something that, and Glenn, correct me if I'm wrong, if there's something, let's say I get an email from somebody who says, here's a lot of numbers, here's something about this particular issue. Can I share that with my colleagues? Can I forward the email to them? I mean, they probably all got
Yeah,
it.
right. You
Then
should
we all
not be,
have this.
right. You shouldn't forward it to them. You should provide it to Carmen. And then Carmen could then send it out to all commissioners with a do not reply all. So it's kind of, it puts a little buffer to make sure you're not inadvertently communicating with each other. Because, even it says do not reply all, occasionally people hit reply and then you've got a sunshine law issue. That way, if they reply,
Okay.
they're replying to Carmen and not to one another.
And I think that's a good suggestion, obviously, to keep us proper on the sunshine. My concern about even that procedure is that means that we have information that the public doesn't have. And I don't think that's as healthy as, hey, let's put our pocket together
But
that
we can't,
all of the commissioners and all of the public has the same information so they can see the basis that we're making our decisions on.
but I think we've got to go back to Carmen, where, let's say you get this email from John Smith and it says, here's information they found. Okay. We can't put that in a packet as an official part of our packet until someone checks the accuracy and vets that. So you're adding a whole nother layer to the staff of what they have to do. And I don't disagree with what you're saying that we have more information, but we're the commission, we're allowed to have more information and we can express at the meeting. And I think tomorrow night's going to be a good example. Apparently we all have the same emails. We can talk about what we got. But I think asking our staff to vet any random, not saying this was random, but any information that we want on the agenda, the staff has to vet that. And that was a lot of information. So I think that's unfair. Carmen, I see your hand up.
And added to that, Mayor, also, when do you stop? So remember, we try to get the information out in a timely manner, 11 days before the meeting. And as information comes after that date, where do we cut it off? Is that really timely information to the public as we're trying to achieve? So there's a lot of questions to, where do you cut off? gathering information that the public submit that we feel like need to go out. So
And we
there's
have
some
been
questions in that.
Yeah, I mean, we put an extra stress on staff when we started by giving them less time to prepare, giving us more lead time for the agenda. So we have a week more than we ever had to get the agenda packets. So that's another issue. So Ronaldo, you've been quiet. You've been so quiet.
Yeah, I look forward to having that more of this discussion. I'm sure I'll have ideas on it, but I
Okay.
just had two things, and they're both things I've already brought up with Carmen. We talked about the first one, the bigger one. You know, we talked a little bit about the golf course yesterday and other things, and I had kind of this idea, and this is something that I can start drafting, and it's going to probably take me a long time, but you know, we have this, well, the county has this Lake Worth Lagoon Management Plan, which sets out a bunch of goals for the lagoon, and it helps the county prioritize where money is going to go for projects, among other things. And so my idea, because I kind of looking around at our neighbors, and I don't think any other municipality has this. I think West Palm has something that might be similar, but I think we should have a document, I don't know what we would call it, a plan or whatever, that kind of just explains and outlines all the work that we're doing as a city that benefits the lagoon and brings us towards meeting the goals of the lagoon management plan, which is things we're already doing, like, you know, stormwater and all the check valves and all those things, and things we want to do, like you know, I have, and I know this has been discussed before, but regarding the golf course, how like the south end floods, I think we have an opportunity where if we consider doing more living shoreline work, there's an opportunity at the golf course to essentially bring in more habitat, if you will, into the golf course, connect that water into the water traps, and then you use that fill to, you know, raise up the parts that are flooding. And that does a number of things. Mainly, it helps clean the lagoon, it creates habitat, but also I think it's going to help us be a little bit more competitive with when the PGA course opens in West
Mhm.
Palm, for example. I think if we bring in more native habitat, it might save us some money in terms of maintenance, because it'll be that much less to mow, that much less, you know, chemicals to use, that sort of thing. And so that's, you know, and that would just be one big facet of this overall plan. Of course, another thing would be, you know, a mooring field. And we already have support on some of those projects. I can tell you there's, you know, I've had meetings elsewhere in my other role in daily life, if you will, with groups like Sustainable Palm Beach County and West Palm Fishing Club, and they would have expressed their interest in supporting something like that, which is amazing. And also here, you know, talking to my colleagues at and whatnot, they agree that a document like that, something like that, would be extremely helpful for us, meaning Lake Worth County collectively and other agencies that are involved, to approach, you know, the agencies that we need things from, like the navigation district, and ask them for money. It'll just give us that much more leverage of saying, look, we want this one project, we need funding, but it's not a one-off thing. It's part of a
Right.
really big systemic, we're doing this hard work, we put a lot of our own money into these projects, and it'll just give us like kind of that much more, you know, playing cards, if you will, to lobby for money. So
That's great. That's great. Yesterday, Carmen and I took a tour of the golf course by a couple of ladies that have been golfing there forever, and I'm glad that we're talking in the sunshine now. They have a couple great ideas. The south end, where they showed us where it floods, they know exactly where it floods every time. get rid of the dirt there and make it a wetland.
Mhm.
Um,
That's
the
exactly what
seawall-
I'm saying, yeah.
Right, there's an area where there's kind of like a natural cove that could be enclosed. The seawall at the north end is gone. It's just crumbled. There it is laying on the ground. So they had some really good, I mean, you know, somebody on Facebook the other day, I'm so sick of you guys saying, you know, we inherited all these problems, you know, it's such an excuse. Well, take a ride on the golf cart. I mean, the potholes, there's one place where the golf cart path has just crumbled into the lake. And this is because nothing's been done about it for a long time. You know, no, I'm not casting aspersions, but I mean, really, it was sad. There were places where you had to drive around the potholes to get by. So I think
Mhm.
that, the golf course brought in $1.5 million last year is the number that I got, but I don't know if that was after expenses or was that profit or was that, you know, what we brought in. Because these ladies are really dedicated to the golf course. They just had their 75th anniversary of the ladies. I'm going to hook you up with them, Ronaldo. They live on the golf course. They
Mhm.
golf every day. They know it intimately. They know Juan. They have a good relationship with Juan. And just to have a plan. I think you're absolutely right. We talk
Yeah.
about, you know, shovel-ready projects. Well, here's where it's just laying in front of us saying, please.
Yeah, that would be
Golf
great because I think our golf course does well, not only because it's public and it's like very reasonably priced, but our staff there is incredible. It is really well taken care of, I think. And of course the beach club is, well, it's clean, I should say. The infrastructure is a different thing, but yeah, and the beach club, is very popular. So I think we have a lot of good assets already to work
Oh,
with, and
yeah.
what we bring in terms of like living shoreline and habitat, I think we can have really good partners that will help cover most of the cost. And
That's
it
great.
really does come down to we need to get it down on paper
Okay.
and come up with a plan.
And you're committed to doing that for us?
Yeah, I can, I'm sure I'll be
Awesome.
asking staff a million questions, but I can I can take the stab at drafting that, because I want to look at a lot of, even including things like policy reform and some of the policies that we already have. Because I can even go as far as saying, like, I think Williams community living, ideas and whatnot for like that ordinance we passed a little while ago, things like that even contribute. This project that the hearing yesterday, last night, and if they bring in a wetland like we asked and whatnot, I think I think all those things are huge, and they kind of add on to our tally that we're committed to helping the lagoon and the
Yeah,
environment.
well, I would like you to, I'm gonna text you their names and numbers and get you
Thank
hooked up,
you.
because they really, and they're, they say, it sounds like we're just complaining, but no, this is information.
No.
I never
Yeah.
drove over the whole golf course. So
Yeah.
it's pretty
Yeah,
wild.
I know
It's
that
huge.
that piece of seawall that you're talking about, some of that seawall is the original from like the 20s.
Oh,
So
absolutely. Yeah.
like, it's incredible it's still there, but yeah, it's in pieces, it's not safe. And so much room for improvement. And I think we really need to be serious about this, because once that PGA course opens just 3 miles away, whatever it is, it's gonna be we're gonna have to compete. So
Yeah, and there are some really good opportunities, and the ladies are very well aware of them. This little area that's kind of a half moon, you could, and it could become part of Snook Islands, I mean, that whole project.
yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you very
That
much.
and
I'll
then
get
there's
you-
and then I had one
Oh,
other thing that's relatively quick, but obviously I live on 6th Avenue, and I've noticed over the last maybe 2 months there has been a lot of accidents. Like, and some of them have been, I think, if not the majority of them, have been single car accidents. People hitting telephone poles, people hitting the bump outs and taking out the trees that are in the bump outs.
They're
They go past, and I just recently learned from South Palm Neighborhood Association that it extends even beyond Federal, where they're speeding and they blow through the stop sign and a bicyclist was hit. so I think there's a lot of room for improvement on 6th Avenue east of Dixie. And I can't, I'm not a traffic engineer, so I can't say for sure what's causing it. I suspect it's
People.
because 6th Avenue is a thoroughfare, and then they cross Dixie, and then they still have the same mentality that it's no longer a residential street.
And
But I
it's
think there's a
very
lot of
narrow.
room. Yeah, it's very narrow. Well, it's narrow, and I think, well, from walking my dog and what I'm witnessing is, as people come across the bump outs, it's like they feel like their car won't fit in between the bump outs, but they
Mhm.
will, because they're well designed.
Because they have to slow
And
down to do it.
right, and so they're doing their intention, but maybe sometimes to a fault, where people stop in the middle of the road, or they just
Mm.
don't notice it until it's too late. So I think, some things to talk about with Jamie, if we have consensus, is the process of making those improvements. And like, west of Federal, I think that looks like, because we have the double yellow line in the middle, and maybe we should consider striping the edges, and leading up to the bump outs, having something. I've seen like the striping that's super bright and reflective, leading up to the bump outs, so that they're just a little bit more visible, because the little solar powered LED things that are in the ground, a lot of them are burnt out and aren't working.
Yeah.
The red reflective signs aren't the most reflective I've seen, and we do have to replace those trees that were
A car
wiped out.
flipped on 6th Avenue South, I was
Yep.
told by, yeah.
Yeah, it ended up on its side, and I think it hit and when you look at the curb, it makes sense, because when you look at the curb around the bump outs, there's a lot of rubber from.
There's a lot of marks on them. Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Um,
One
Thank-
little thing to add, Ronaldo, perhaps as you prepare a draft document relating to the golf course and interaction with the lagoon, you might mention that, and I love the idea. I think it's very good for positioning us for outside help. You might mention that we're committed to public access on some of the right of ways. I forget, 16th Avenue North and 18th. And I think there's one more that we've talked about. We actually committed to some of the ARPA money to make sure that some of them are ones that have already been completed but don't have the public access. We're going to go back and retrofit that to do it. That would fit into the bigger picture of our commitment as a city to involvement with the.
Yeah, and that's critical, because the county and the Lagoon Initiative, that's a key component, right? It's not all about just creating habitat and cleaning water. There needs to be a public use component, and I can probably confidently say that I think they love the fact that our town has so much lagoon side property devoted to public use, and I think that's why we're going to get a lot of support, and it's something to highlight. Also on the list are the fishing docks at Spillway Park, for example.
Sure.
Which I know a lot of groups want that to happen.
I'd like to get some playground equipment at Spillway Park. That's an underused, under-adorned,
Totally agree. Yeah.
So, okay, great. Thank you very much. That's helpful. I want to bring something up, and I don't know when it's gonna come back to us, but there's a house at the corner of J Street and 6th Avenue South, that little duplex, Ronaldo, that sits on the corner there. I've been I approached staff about it, because the north end of the building, my sister lives right up the street, and she's been after me for a while. It's been a mess. It's a house that I closed down in the 90s. It's a drug house. It's not a drug house now, but the absolute outside of the outside wall is gone.
Wow.
You can see the studs. Okay, now there's no window. And
Are you talking about my next door neighbor, the one right on? It's right on.
Right. Yeah. It's a nice piece of property. Staff has done some research, and I think I want to bring it. It was approved to be foreclosed. I want to foreclose it, and there's no mortgage on it, so it's actually a property that we could acquire. One of the concerns I think that staff has is that it is occupied, so you hate to do that to those people, but they're living in they're living in a house with no outside wall. So, hopefully we can find some way to help them get, just moved. But I think it's been an eyesore for years and years and years. And it's such a large piece of property that, we could actually do something with it. in that
Madam
area.
Mayor?
Yep.
Just as an
Hi.
update, we are working on that and processing it, and it will be coming to you soon.
Great,
as you-
thank you.
as you mentioned
Thank
it.
you for doing that. Yeah, I know. It's just been, gone for way too long. So, thank you. I
Thank you
don't
for
have-
raising.
Yeah, well, my
Does-
sister, who is a force of nature, has been looking at it for the past few years. And I mean, we get complaints from the public. My sister's right on me, so I give the credit to Barbara.
It's really sad. Yeah. Does
Yeah.
anyone know, is there, and I'm just kind of curious, does the county or a nonprofit or anyone have like relocation money to help those people find a place?
I don't know. I mean, we could look at adopt a family, different,
Yeah.
it's not gonna happen tomorrow, but,
Right.
and by the time the foreclosure, blah, blah goes through, end of school year kind of, it's not gonna happen before the school year's over. So that won't happen. So, what else? Anything else? Do staff? Hello, everybody sits and listens to us prattle on. Lauren, you're doing a great job with the street painting festival. Is your hair standing on end yet? Oops.
She
Oh.
must be out painting. She's not here right now.
They were out measuring the streets
I'm-
yesterday, so.
I'm
yeah.
here. Thank you,
Oh, there
Mayor.
she is. There she is. Is there anything that we can do to help?
Nope, not at this time, but thank you.
Stay out of your way and don't ask for anything extra.
That would be lovely.
We'll do our best.
Thank
Miss-
you.
Listen to Miss Bennett. And her staff, I mean, they were out measuring spaces yesterday with she and Emmerich, and it's really a lot of work and so Saturday is the historical. Ginny Powell is out buying flowers, and she's a little annoyed. Apparently the freeze, the cold weather that we had a real effect on what's available. So she went to Amelia's. They really, so she, bless her heart, she's really being helpful and because that little planter looks so sad, and Saturday people are going to be there.
I don't know how that came about, but I just want to thank whoever made it happen, because I remember talking about this with Carmen and Jamie. It seems like a long time ago, maybe like a month or so ago, because
Well-
I was
Oh,
ready
yeah.
to go out there and start sifting soil and do it myself if I found
Right. Well,
a couple hours. So
knowing that this thing was happening Saturday, I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God, I'm not going to go buy flowers and plant them. I don't have time. But I
Right.
called Ginny, who's a master gardener and a wonderful
Yeah.
asset to our city. And she and I think a friend of hers are out literally right now buying flowers. So and they're going to plant them. So
Right.
I just
And I
thought that was
think-
such-
and I
And
think it
maybe we
might
could
be
just-
I think there's a good opportunity. Also, I think I just saw Sarah left, but
yeah.
it is, I think it's marble. So I think
Mm-hmm.
the stones that are there can use some love as well. And I know Sarah has some insight on how to clean that sort of thing.
Oh.
So
Okay. We'll find out. Well, at least they'll be looking good. I go by there. I'm like, oh, it's like, but addressing like, staff and Carmen, it's like one for them, it's like teeny little thing. For the public, it looks crappy. So maybe we could adopt it. Maybe we can keep an eye on it and make sure that little planter's, 1 month you water it and 1 month I water, that kind of thing, because it is right there downtown. And it looks very sad. So maybe we could take that on. Anything else, staff? Anything? Welcome back, Yannick. Yannick, we are so glad to have you back. Oh, everybody's busy, so they don't need to listen to us. It's 9:55.
It takes time to take off your mute sometimes.
It does.
There he is.
There he is. Good morning, Yannick, and I'm just saying thank you for coming back to us. Oh, well. I went out and saw him yesterday and thanked him for coming back.
It's good to have him back.
Very good to have him back. So without further ado, I know we all have plenty of work to do. Anything before we close out? Anything from anybody?
Not for me, Madam Mayor. I think we're all good, and we'll see each other tomorrow at 6 p.m.
No, it's 5. Is it
5
I'm sorry,
p.m.
5 p.m.
5
Thank you.
p.m. Right.
Thank you for the correction.
That's okay. And then Yeah, I mean, so this, there's a reason no commission has ever come to an agreement on Airbnbs. But I think we'll look at that information. And Ronaldo, did you get an email from someone with information about Airbnbs stuff like downloads and things?
Yeah, I have, and it's probably, I'm sure you all received the same thing.
Right. So let's all just take, make sure you take a look at
yeah.
that. Okay.
Yeah, I think
Alright.
the count, in terms of, I guess in the science world, we call it QA, QC, the data, the quality assurance. Some of the stuff that comes
Right,
from the
who
county
knows?
and stuff, of course, and I
Yeah,
think to Christopher's point earlier, I think that's what he's alluding to is like things like that we know come from a trusted source.
well,
If we're going to
no,
discuss it, yeah,
we
it's
can't,
hard.
if we don't produce it, we can't trust it.
Well, if it's from the county, yeah.
Well, something like that, but I mean,
Yeah. It's difficult. It's a lot of stuff to manage and file for sure. So
and I mean, it really on some level, I'm a simple woman. It's going to be either there's none, they're all the place, or there's someplace, right? And here's some restrictions that we can do. We have that, but that's to make sure that we got what options we have. But one thing people that say, just enforce it. You've got 6 weeks, minimum 3 times a year, enforce it. My question to them is like, please tell me how you expect us to do that. It's not a silly question. It's a real question. I mean, do we knock on the door after 6 weeks and go, are you still here? So, and I open, it's funny because I'll say to somebody on Facebook a lot, if you have a suggestion or if you have an issue, private message me. We get a lot of good ideas from citizens. Essentially crickets when somebody could criticizes and I ask, well, what's your issue or tell me what you're thinking. I rarely hear back. So, so it's Airbnb, we have things we're tackling and, people say, well, don't use an excuse that you inherited it, but it's the reality. We did inherit all this stuff and we're plowing through it as best as we can with, years of frustration on everybody's part. So having said that, Chris, be careful out there. Don't get eaten by an alligator.
I will try to come back in one piece tomorrow.
You staying overnight out there?
No.
Oh.
We'll see you tomorrow. No, we're just out
Oh.
for a long day, but
It's a brave man. Thank you, everyone. My dog's starting to growl. Have a great day, everyone.